Just like I promised in the last video, Bud is a hurricane just like Aletta was. Before I get to the two tropical entities in the Pacific of Aletta and Bud, I want to talk about what's happening in the Atlantic, or what's not happening in the Atlantic. In the last video, I was talking about a possible tropical storm that the GFS was developing, but this is turning out to not be true. Almost no models are picking it up except for the GFS. That's because the GFS in its simulation is just turning up the moisture from 0 to 100% in around the Caribbean Sea, so that's why it's spinning up a low pressure with all those thunderstorms being there. If you don't take a look at the GFS and just look at the more reliable over time European model, that model literally has nothing forming in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean Sea, but the GFS somehow does. So for the time being, there's absolutely nothing expected to form within the next 5 days, and I'm willing to bet again that nothing's going to form for the next 10 days. My date is June 20th. We got to look around June 20th when something's going to form. But that's it for the Atlantic. Now let's shift over to the Pacific, where we have Aletta and now Hurricane Bud. In my last video, Aletta was a hurricane at category 1 status, but as soon as I made that video, it rapidly strengthened to cat 4 status, where it was looking like a baller. Aletta was benefiting from that perfect 85-degree water temperature, nice warm temperatures in the Pacific, the no dry air, the no wind shear. It was in a perfect environment. No one truly expected the extent for Aletta to go all the way to cat 4 status. I was definitely thinking in my mind it's probably gonna go to cat 3, but no one else was thinking that, so I was like, maybe it won't do it. But I've learned my lesson. When you see a hurricane in those perfect conditions and it's marking all those check marks, that means it could rapidly strengthen. And also, when you see a hurricane recover its eye to strengthen, you know it's rapidly strengthening. But the good thing about Aletta is that it was just a beautiful fish storm. It was just a beautiful fish storm with a huge eye at cat 4, and now it's a tropical storm for the fish. Aletta right now is a tropical storm at 45 miles per hour. It's still got some nice convection with it, but it's going to slowly weaken because the water temperatures are around 78 degrees Fahrenheit and around 26 degrees Celsius. But Aletta is now enduring some strong wind shear and some dry air to its west, so it's going to continue to decline until it's nothing again. But as I'm playing the Aletta satellite imagery over my voice right now, you could kind of see Bud to the eastern side of that satellite image. And yes, Bud is a hurricane. Just like in the last video, like Hurricane Aletta, Bud is now a hurricane itself at category 1 status at 75 miles per hour. I can say this from my own very heart that Bud is not looking as good as Aletta when they were both 75 miles per hour. Aletta already had an eye at this point. Bud isn't looking that bad on satellite imagery at all. It's looking like a category 1 hurricane, but it doesn't look like it's going to strengthen to a cat 4, which is definitely good news because like I said in the last video, Bud might actually make landfall in Mexico. In the last video, I said there was a possibility that Bud could make landfall in Cabo San Lucas, and that's looking to become very true very soon. As of this moment, the peninsula of Baja California, and especially the Cabo San Lucas city on the tip of that peninsula, is directly straight in the cone. The good news is that Hurricane Bud isn't having the perfect environmental conditions such as that perfect wind shear and that perfect non-dry air like Aletta was, so now it's not going to strengthen to a cat 4 status. It's only going to max out as a cat 2, maybe a cat 3 if it gets itself together, but once it heads to Cabo San Lucas, it's going to become a tropical storm because of the decreased water temperatures. There's a clear divided line at Cabo San Lucas on the peninsula. Once you go to the west a little bit, the water temperatures are freezing, but once you go to the east, they're actually generally warm to support a category 1 hurricane. But since both the European model and the GFS model take Hurricane Bud straight directly making landfall in Cabo San Lucas, it's going to encounter those lower water temperatures. Therefore, it's going to weaken to a tropical storm. But as of right now, that possible landfall in Cabo San Lucas is around 4 to 5 days away. So we have to worry about the now, and the right now is some rain along the Mexican coastline. There's actually a tropical storm watch right now in between Manzanillo, which is actually a pretty big city, and Yelpa, all the way that little chunk of Mexican coastline. But pretty much if you draw a line at Bud's longitude right now to the Mexican coastline all the way to Yelpa, that's the place along the Mexican coastline that's going to experience high surf and those little outer bands of Hurricane Bud. But once Thursday, Friday comes around, Hurricane Bud might just make landfall in Cabo San Lucas directly. If it goes a little bit to the east, it's going to be a stronger landfall. If it goes to the west, it's going to be way weaker. This is truly where 100 miles can make all the difference on the intensity of Hurricane Bud or Tropical Storm Bud, whatever it is, at Friday or Thursday. This hurricane is definitely one to watch because Hurricane Bud might just make landfall on the Baja California Peninsula in between 4 to 5 days. But even when it makes landfall in Cabo San Lucas, it's not stopping there. It's going north all the way to bring tropical moisture to Arizona, Southern California, and New Mexico, where they're all going to feel the effects of hurricane or post-tropical Bud. Thank you to all my subscribers for watching, and I'll see you in the next one for another tropical update.